Alrighty, Wine with Jimmy here, and welcome to the Smiths.
All right.
That's where we are today. Andy Smith, Jimmy Smith. We're here at DuMOL,
Yep.
and we have the brilliant Mount St. Helena in the background behind us. And we're going to talk a little bit about something which makes you guys quite unique, because you'll be able to see on the camera there behind me, we've got a wonderful Pinot Noir block here with very sort of high density plantation. So
There we go.
Andy, why do this? Because there's only a handful of producers here that actually have such high density, around 3,600 vines per acre.
Yep.
So why, and what are the benefits?
Well, I think this may sound a little strange, but it's not often that winemakers get to plant vineyards, particularly these days. But I've been doing this 30 years now, and during that time I've had the privilege to plant a lot of vineyards. And I always approach it from the standpoint of, when you get that opportunity, you should do something different, not just peek over the fence and do whatever your neighbor's done. I had been visiting Burgundy quite a lot from starting in the mid-90s. I was aware of the historical spacing there, and thought, why can't we recreate that here? The hardest part of that decision is equipment. We need machinery to farm vineyards at scale. But we were able to find, myself and a local colleague, we were able to find a French over-the-road tractor that was perfect for this setup. So we were able to solve the equipment issue. And our feeling was that this is going to create wines that have special character, distinctive character, that could be aromatically or structure or fruit or whatever. And luckily we've been proved correct. But yeah, it was a little bit of a
gamble to begin with?
A gamble,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's quite funny. This is about a 10-acre parcel. Before we saw the results of it, we'd planted another 10 acres just down the hillside here. So we kind of jumped in with both feet in the high density model. Now that the vines are 20 years old, it's absolutely fantastic. We love the character of the wines. We love how the shading protects.
We'll come closer and have a look at the shading, which is fantastic.
The shading keeps the soil cool. That means there's more microbial activity down at a root level. It means we don't have to irrigate these vines. You can see we don't have to pull the leaves to expose the bunches. So the grapes themselves in July, August, September stay nice and cool. That means they retain more aromatic character, more acidity, a little bit more color in the skins. So it's a very gentle, actually, we come to realize, very gentle, sort of natural way of growing grapes.
And then another thing you're fairly well known for is not necessarily focusing on the wave of Dijon clones that came into California, but actually utilizing heritage clones and massal selection. So why have you gone down that approach?
Well, again, this was a decision I made 25 years ago, and that's an ongoing decision. So we've never been in the camp of planting these what we call Dijon clones. Now, if you think about it, the Dijon clones were sort of propagated, isolated, selected in Burgundy in the 80s, and that was a time of fairly mediocre climate and a lot of rain. It wasn't a particularly great decade for wine quality. And so they were selecting for grapes that would ripen early, that would metabolize acidity, so lower acidity. This is the complete opposite to what we're looking for. We're looking for grapes that retain acidity, that are able to hang on the vine and produce sugar slowly. And so our early experiments with Dijon clones showed that you can make very nice wines, very supple, gentle, fruity wines, but they really don't have as much character as these heritage clones.
There's a lot to be said about these clones that have grown up here and evolved and developed with the conditions, right?
Yeah. Now, obviously, these heritage selections originally came from Burgundy, but they may have been here 40, 50 years, and they have quite a different genetic makeup. they're smaller grapes, smaller bunches. They just give you way more savory character, and they tend to retain acidity. You know, it's maybe not as black and white as that, but we vastly prefer them as well. They have a little inherent virus in them because they didn't come from a single mother vine. So there's a little bit of inherent virus, and that adds a little bit of complexity and slows down the ripening as well.
And then our location here, many people will know Sonoma, the Sonoma coast, the Russian River, but we're in quite a special part of the Russian River. And right on cue, you feel that breeze just coming through then. It's important to have these special, I don't even know what they're called, but these things on top of the microphone, because you won't hear us otherwise, because there's a nice breeze coming through. So how far are we from the Pacific? How important is it to have this location?
Yeah, so we're about 14 miles, that's west, from the ocean itself. The geology is such that, and the geography is such that, actually our cooling comes from the south. So it comes, there's a gap at Bodega Bay, and then a little bit further south at Petaluma, which is all open, kind of cattle country, dairy country. So that's where the fog comes onto the land in Sonoma. And it sort of sweeps its way up from the south here in the evening. So the coastal breeze will kick in, you know, about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. It's followed by the fog. Today there's no fog. So it's a little bit unusual for the end of July, no fog. But you can feel that coastal breeze still. It's very nice. It kind of keeps everything sort of benign and a little bit more fresh. Yeah.
So you got that effect from the coast coming through Petaluma Gap, Bodega Bay.
Right.
You've also got a bit of a diurnal shift, I take it, because you're a little bit inland as well. Do you drop at night, or is it still fairly maritime?
The main feature for us is just over here is a vast wetland called the Laguna de Santa Rosa, and it's quite a large wetland. It's all protected. It's not been developed. And that's where the cold air pools at night, and it really hangs around till a little bit later in the morning. So if it were foggy, right now, we'd be emerging from the fog now at 10 a.m., but it would still be foggy down there in the valley. So that's really has a large impact on our climate here. That vast area that's very low-lying, a lot of vernal pools, and so cold air hangs there, the fog hangs there, and it very slowly burns off. Yeah. So it's a little bit counterintuitive here. The lower you are, the cooler it is. When you get up into the hills, it's a little bit warmer, and you get into the coastal mountains, it can be quite warm because you're oftentimes above the fog.
Like if you go to Fort Ross at Hirsch, for example, they have that kind of warmth in that area, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but you know, it's surprisingly early that their Pinot Noir ripens.
Yeah.
One would think you buy the ocean, okay, it's going to be a late ripening site, but often that's not the case.
And then finally, geology. What's the kingdom of dirt below our feet here?
Yeah, so this whole area used to be the bottom of the ocean. The Pacific and the American plates have been doing this for a long time. Eventually, these ridgelines were uplifted, and so basically we're very, very sandy soil. It's very soft, erodible sandstone, and it kind of does the same thing that limestone does. It's able to hold the winter rain and just dose it out to the vine roots in July and August. So we don't need to irrigate these vines.
And you said it was the Goldridge, but Sebastopol.
Yeah, this has a little bit more clay in it, this block. So the wine's a little bit more dense, a little bit more muscle and mid-palate. When you get the very fine sandy loams like down here, where there's almost no clay, the wine's a little bit more aromatic, more red-fruited, higher acidity. But here, that clay influence comes in sort of the muscle in the wine. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Andy.
Yeah.
Awesome.